All right, what is up, everybody? What is up? Happy Sunday. Happy continuation of Wild Card Weekend. We are here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice, this time for the 3/4 gamer on DraftKings and FanDuel. Yes, with the Buffalo game being moved, all sorts of chaos yesterday in how the sites would handle it. But don't worry, we have you covered. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder at Occupy Fantasy, joined once again by Jack, owner of DFS Magic and creator of the Lineup Builder at Occupy Fantasy, and noted short slate killer. Jack, what's up, dude?
Ryan, how you doing? I think you're probably doing well. I think you hit the December with the championship qualifier, and then I had a couple weeks, and I think last night we went back to you. So a big win. Why don't you tell us about it and talk about if it translates today or whatever you're thinking.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, after your hot start to the 2024 year, I had to play some catch up, and I'm still about 100K back from you. But this is from last night's. This screenshot you see on screen here is from last night's Kansas City and Miami Showdown slate. This was the 4-4-4 small field contest. And Jack, all the discussions that I have had, you and I have had in terms of weather games and lower total showdown games, all the charts and data finally came to fruition. This was a zero quarterback, one defense, one kicker, multi running back. Perfect weather game came to fruition. So, yeah, really happy about this, and really happy that it paid off.
The other thing, as we know is very relevant to the short slates is the overstacking that you use, right? So why don't you talk about your thoughts there and if you see that translating to today as well.
Yeah, so this was a 5-1 stack with just one Miami bringback. And yeah, we see all these types of mega stacks stacking in both showdown contests and in the short slates as well. So we'll definitely talk about that here today. So what our plan is this is a live Q&A. We'll be here till 12:30, 12:45, depending on the number of questions that we do get. But what we're going to do, talk about just an overview, content and schedules and all that. First of all, we will talk about the weather because while Buffalo Pittsburgh was moved, there are still some weather effects similar to what we saw in the Kansas City game last night. We will go over the injuries for all 8 teams playing today and tomorrow. We will talk about short slate strategies, which applies the most to this 3-game and 4-game slate. And we will close it out with some low-owned plays. So, Jack, just from a scheduling and slate perspective, Buffalo was moved. DraftKings has a 3-gamer. They kept their 3-gamer, and FanDuel added it, and now they just made it a 4-game Sunday, Monday slate. So we have a 3-gamer on DraftKings, 4-gamer on FanDuel. Does that change your approach much depending on which slate you're playing?
A little bit. I think we can try to get into the differences between a 3 and a 4 gamer. Usually we talk about 2 and 3 gamer. And by the way, just to say, congrats to you. I don't think I got that in there, but great win. Hopefully we'll keep it up. Yeah, I think 4 gamer, we can talk about the differences there, but I think maybe starting with how we treat 3 gamers and just making some adjustments is probably the best way to think about it. And, just for, awareness, there is still a 2-gamer on DraftKings and FanDuel. And for FanDuel, we even got one tomorrow. I think it looks like DraftKings gave us one tomorrow as well. So, not necessarily the massive prize pools in the 3 and 4 gamer, but it's still NFL playoffs. I clicked through some of the contests, especially for small field. There are still some very good contests, good satellites. So, if you have extra time, like definitely look into those, and you can just watch the video yesterday. Keep turning the crank on the 2-gamer. I think people shouldn't get lost that those contests are still out there.
No, exactly. That's a very good point. And it helps that the games start at 4:30 today, so we have basically all day to get our lineups in. So that certainly helps. Just from a content perspective, our daily plug is up on the site, occupyfantasy.com. That covers the 3-gamer and 4-gamer. We will have a daily plug tomorrow specifically for the big showdown slate between Tampa Bay and Philadelphia. And then tomorrow's video, I will be back with a showdown video for Tampa Bay and Philadelphia. You can refer back to this video for tomorrow's Buffalo and Pittsburgh game. So we got lots of people in the chat. Let's get these questions in. First of all, just Michael says, morning from the Napa Valley. Jack, I think we all can be jealous. Napa Valley weather compared to here in the DC area.
Yeah, no one right now.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So let's talk about the weather. That's the first thing we should talk about. Buffalo, Pittsburgh moved to tomorrow. It was expected to be complete whiteout, like blizzard conditions, 50-mile-per-hour gusts. Smartly, they moved it to tomorrow. Now, the weather's still not going to be fantastic. We're talking 15 to 25-mile-per-hour sustained winds, gusts a little higher, cold weather, not like Kansas City, but still cold. Snow remains to be seen. We could see snow in game as well. The biggest indicator is that this total went from 33 when it was projected on Saturday up to 37 and a half now. So obviously a much improved game state, Jack, but still a 37-point total in a Josh Allen game is not really high.
No, and we're gonna see probably some of the effect of yesterday where it's gonna be overowned, right? It's the worst game. Also, point out the two games today are, I'm pulling it up, but very high totals,
Yeah.
right? In well, one dome. I don't know if Dallas will open the roof or not, but essentially like two, fast tracks. Yeah, we have a 48 and a 50. Tomorrow we have a 43, or whatever we said, 30, 37, right?
Yep.
Uh, Philly, Tampa, 45, but both quarterbacks are injured. It's just not, so to me, it screams prioritizing the games today on the 3 and 4 gamers. Is that where you're going as well?
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, I think even on my 6 gamers that I built on Saturday, I was prioritizing specifically Los Angeles and Detroit the most, and I think you can do that again today. Obviously, Green Bay and Dallas looks great as well. The spread is a little bigger in that game. But yeah, I think these two games obviously stand out, and we'll talk about the ownership here in a bit. But as you said, with the weather in Buffalo, it will likely be overowned just because it is not being factored into the projections. If you are playing that showdown slate, go ahead and bust out the charts that I brought out in that Pittsburgh and New England game. The same charts and the same information I used for last night's win. So make sure you use that for tomorrow's game as well. Let's see if we can run through some of these questions really quickly before we get to the injuries that impact this slate. Let's see. So Jose said, which game are you personally rostering the most? Yeah, that would be LA and Detroit, as well as Green Bay and Dallas. So Michael says, would love to hear a couple or a few of the studs that you would fade. So if we go, let's go to FanDuel, Jack. And if we look
We're
at
just going straight to the Occupy specials here, huh? We're
yeah,
not talking about good chalk and reasonable plays. We're just going straight to let's fade the guys that are 60% out. But we love talking about that, so we'll roll with it.
All right, so studs, we will consider 8K and higher on FanDuel. So that's CeeDee Lamb, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kyren Williams, Dak Prescott, Mike Evans, and Puka Nacua. Any strong lean on any of these guys that you feel comfortable being underweight on? And to be fair, on the 4 gamer on FanDuel, it's not like any of these ownerships are going to get out of control.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a perennial Rashad White fader, and it burns me a lot. I mean, yes, he has a lot of opportunity. He's pretty inefficient. That's a pass funnel defense, and injured quarterback. I mean, I don't know. I don't like. I'm not going to go zero, but that's probably one. I guess these ownerships are a little flat. The top guys, though, I mean, Cooper Kupp, St. Brown, Aaron Jones. I'm not really trying to go under on any of those guys. I feel like those are all pretty smash spots. So, anything stick out to you?
No, honestly, no. That as I was looking and building some preliminary lineups this morning, it wasn't really about which guys I'm looking to fade. I think there are so many great lower owned spots that it's really about which of those am I getting over on, as opposed to making my stand on being underweight on the studs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. And I almost go the other way. And looking at just ownership, I think some of these value guys are the ones I'd be more interested in going under, like Jamison Williams,
Yeah.
Jake Ferguson. They're kind of tertiary pass catchers that, they're just super owned because of the price tag. And we're seeing there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of studs on this slate that are not very owned. So I would be more interested in trying to pivot away from those guys than I would be just start, fading studs on this one.
Yeah, in Detroit in particular, no Khalif Raymond, which may not seem like a big factor, but as a wide receiver 4, but he does run a decent amount of routes. It just really opens up more for even Josh Reynolds, who saw a reduction with the ascendance of Jamison Williams. So Josh Reynolds, an easy, direct pivot over Jamison Williams. Yes, Jamison Williams more explosive, more talented. Josh Reynolds the better NFL receiver at this point in their career. So I think Reynolds easy for a fifth of the ownership that Jamison has. Geek says, is Aaron Jones a play for FanDuel? Yeah, Jack, I don't think there's much to say. No A.J. Dillon once again, so Aaron Jones should get the bulk of the work there.
Yeah, I mean he's chalky, but I'm trying to go at least field, if not. It just screams, just play him. I don't think you gotta get fancy with that one. On the Detroit side, you mentioned the receivers. Let's talk about Laporta.
Yeah.
So normally we make fun of the other sites for not adjusting projections for things like weather or injuries. But today there's some strange projections with Laporta that like you said it, and I was thinking it. It literally looks like they took their normal projection and just like divided by two. Normally he's projected
Yeah.
very well. He's in a great spot, but he's injured, and they just have a bad projection. And you'll see in the builder and the occupied model, we have very low ownership in him. And I think you always say it like we're never really gonna know. And if you just play the guy, if he's active, he's good to go. That's generally the best approach. And I mean, what are your thoughts there? It seems like potentially huge opportunity to play him over some of these kind of worse secondary chalky tight ends.
It's a no-brainer to me. And maybe we'll get an ownership bump as we get better news, but it is the second game today, so I doubt that we will. And yeah, full practice on Friday for Laporta. The vibes around his availability increased dramatically from last game day through the end of practice this week. Yeah, so yeah, I think he's going to play. And you have to assume, as you said to me this morning, it's not like you can really decoy a tight end since they're so involved in both aspects of the game. So if he's in, he's probably in. And even if he is limited to high leverage situations, they scheme enough plays for him that he could score 2 touchdowns and be optimal at super low ownership. So really like that call. A couple people are asking about overstacking Green Bay and Dallas today on the 2-gamer. And so for those who have been watching the videos, you know the strategies, right? You want to either overstack one game, playing 5, 6, 7 guys from one game when it's a 2-gamer. You want to leave salary. You want to play low-owned plays. Jack, both of these games are high enough totals that it may be a little scary to overstack. But if one does fail and you overstack the other, you have a pretty big advantage, I think.
Yeah, and you mentioned your preference for LA Detroit, and I will attempt to read your mind here. One of the reasons for that, it is a slightly better game environment with the total and the spread, but also we have a lot better understanding of who's going to get the ball in that game. Whereas the other game, Green Bay, as a Packer fan, I love it. We're super deep with the pass catchers, but it's very difficult to know. Now, I took advantage of that with the 100K win, right, by playing like 2% owned Bo Melton. But for a multi-game slate where you can't really get away with playing those kind of guys, it's just hard to know if it's going to be Watson, Wicks, Dobbs, Kraft. So to your point, like that game could go off, but if CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard take all the points from Dallas and the Packers spread it around, that's where you could see the early game being optimal as an overstack, even if the other game scores a bunch of points. Is that kind of consistent with another one reason why you like the LA game?
We've done enough of these shows together, Jack. You know how to read my mind. So, yes, that is exactly what I'm thinking when it comes to LA and Detroit. So we talked about a bunch of these injuries. Let's just talk about them right now. Let's go team by team. And again, we'll get to the rest of the questions here in a second. We're here till 12:30, 12:45 or so. So let's get to these injuries and how they impact. So we'll start with the earliest game and go to tomorrow's night's game. Green Bay, A.J. Dillon's out, so Aaron Jones leads the way. Christian Watson likely to play. And Jack, I'll get your opinion as a Packer fan here in a second. Their corner, Jair Alexander, very questionable. Seemingly, when he's been questionable, he is not suited up. So that obviously would be a boost for Dallas' passing game. And Dallas is fully healthy coming into this one. So Watson, it sounds like he's going to play barring any setbacks in pregame warmups. But to me, this kind of seems like his first return from the hamstring where they didn't run him back in on full snaps and they rotated a bunch of guys. I think that's how it's going to be. Do you see it any differently?
No, I mean, I think the way the depth pass catchers are playing for Green Bay, even if everyone was healthy, they would still rotate. I mean, those, the secondary guys are actually good at football. So it's tough. I mean, it's a tough situation. Again, Packers fan, love it. DFS perspective, like even though I expect them to put up points, I'm not loving the idea of trying to figure out, and I haven't built yet. Trying to figure out how to super stack Love is very difficult today for that reason. I guess the only solace is it looks like a lot of those guys are probably lower owned, right? I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah, so those pass catchers are lower owned, so I'd still look at it. It's just going to be tough to land on the right combo. So yeah, sorry, keep going with the injuries there, but that's the impacts there.
Agree. Okay. LA and Detroit, safety Jordan Fuller for LA did not practice all week. Sounds like he's going to be out, so that's a little bit of a boost for Detroit's passing game. For Detroit, we already talked about Khalif Raymond being out. Sam Laporta, we already discussed that situation. Question in the chat asking about Brock Wright as a cheap option. We expect Sam Laporta to play. They also signed Anthony Ferkser, who's a veteran tight end. He may even see snaps over Brock Wright, so Brock Wright is super thin no matter which slate you're playing today, I would think. Buffalo and Pittsburgh tomorrow. So Gabe Davis is out. That gives a huge bump to Khalil Shakir and Trent Sherfield, Jack. And Pittsburgh getting healthy in the secondary. They get Minka Fitzpatrick back, DeMonte KZ back from the suspension for KZ. Finally have their starting secondary in order. However, TJ Watt is out, which is a big impact for that defense.
Yeah, one of the handicappers I read has put some stats up of Pittsburgh's splits with and without TJ Watt, and like
Scary.
they're pretty atrocious without him. So yeah, I like this spot. Like we said, game environment matters. This is not a great game environment, but with Gabe Davis out, like we know where the ball is going to go. The pass catchers are affordable. So there are very valid ways to play Josh Allen here. Let's see. I think injury wise for Buffalo, you mentioned that. I guess let's just touch on that game for a second. Then how would you approach? I think we know how to play Buffalo. Play Josh Allen. Play Diggs. Play Cook, Kincaid, Shakir. What are you doing with the Pittsburgh side of that? Are you interested in bringbacks there? Like, do you think you have to do bringbacks there with these types of slates?
So on a classic slate, on a normal slate, we would never bring it back with such a large spread. Let's go to the spread here. This again, this if you do not know, this what I'm showing on screen here is the live odds at OccupyFantasy.com, where you can see live odds for all the games. And yeah, Buffalo 10-point favorites. Like it would not shock anyone if this game was like 27-3 or 27-0. So running a bring back is tough. However, Deontay Pickens and Harris on FanDuel is relatively popular. Warren is popular in DraftKings, or vice versa. I can't remember which one is which. But the pass catchers are not. And so I think bringing a bring back, yes, it's thin, but no one's going to do it. So it does give you some leverage if you do decide to stack that game.
Yeah, and remind me, isn't the typical highest ROI bring back usually pass catcher in game stacks? I don't remember.
Yeah, for the most part,
totally.
yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that's an easy one if you're going to do it. Maybe small field, you don't have to, but it's certainly large field. That's a good way to play it. Any other injury notes on this one?
None on that game. Let's touch on the final game for the FanDuel slate, the Monday night game. And again, we'll go in depth in the video tomorrow and the plug tomorrow in this game. But A.J. Brown is out. Unfortunately, injured that knee in Week 18. He is out. So that leaves Julio Jones, Quez Watkins. To me, Jack, it's more just a bump for Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert. Their top two safeties are out. Sidney Brown, ACL injury, he is out. Reed Blankenship, not necessarily out just yet. He could still play, but he did not practice all week. So missing both secondary, both safeties, not great for Philadelphia. Tampa Bay fully healthy. To me, Jack, and if you guys remember one thing from this video, I think the best play on the entire 4-game slate and 2-gamer tomorrow is Mike Evans. We have him at sub 10%. And we know they're going to feed him the ball against backup safeties. I get it that there are other guys in higher total games around him, but dude, we have to take advantage of that ownership.
Yeah, I just was scrolling and I was like, holy crap, 5%. And I think, didn't we even have the squeaky wheel coach narrative thing this week? They were like, we got to find ways to give him the ball. Yeah, I agree with you. This is a fantastic play. No matter what, you can play him as a one-off, play him in the game stack. It doesn't matter. So yeah, I mean the price tag, people will see it and they'll be like, gross, I'm not doing it. Philly's defense has been terrible even with those guys in and they're out. So it's a good one. Are you interested in game stacking this game or maybe lower priority relative to the other ones for the 4-gamer at least?
No, I'm certainly interested because yes, we have the higher total games in the day before today. But with those secondary injuries, with Jalen Hurts, with the condensed passing tree with Goddard and Devonta Smith for Philadelphia, I think it makes a lot of sense. And you can just go a 3-1 stack on a 4-game slate and be perfectly fine. I really do like it.
Yeah, and again, this with the injuries, it helps us. Just like the Buffalo game, we know more where the ball's going, and they're cheaper. So yes. That is a key factor in deciding to game stack. Okay, any other injury notes on this one?
I think we're good. I think we're good on injuries. So let's hit some of these questions in the chat, and then we'll get on to some of our favorite low-owned plays, as well as some more short slate strategies that we think should apply to both the 3-gamer on DraftKings and the 4-gamer on FanDuel. Let me see here if I can find them. All right, Sean says, your favorite number 2 running back on the slate. He's currently playing a lot of Leonard Fournette. I guess the question, Jack, is on a 3-gamer and a 4-gamer, do we really need to play backup running backs? Because to me, that seems more of a 2-game slate strategy.
No, I don't. I think it is a 2-game slate strategy. However, if you consider, David Montgomery an RB2, his ownership is essentially 0. I get it. He's splitting with Gibbs. Gibbs is like the sexier pick, but the dude is still getting a ton of run. He gets red zone looks. So he's a guy that, like, if he's optimal and scores 2 touchdowns, it's none of us would be surprised. But he's not being played that way. So if I were looking for a lower owned running back to take a shot on, like, he's not cheap, but that's probably the one that just the ownership is just kind of crazy, especially on FanDuel where touchdowns matter a lot more.
Totally, I totally agree with that. And it's a chance, right? In a high leverage game, first playoff game, that they lean on the veteran more than Gibbs. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but we saw it yesterday with Kareem Hunt get more work. Coaches lean on these veterans in these stress game environments, so I can certainly see it with Montgomery here. More questions. DFS PhD says, is Higbee solid? So he is technically questionable. I think he is going to play, but he looks kind of popular, Jack, and he does pop if you play him in game stacks. Any thoughts one way or the other on Higbee?
I was just gonna pull up. They don't go crazy with the tight end involvement. I'm just looking at Higbee's.
Yeah, I mean they're really not super.
7 targets, but that was in a week 18. They didn't try, right? So 4, 11, 5. Yeah, I don't know. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm really interested in just playing Laporta as much as I can, and then tilting when he plays like 5 snaps. But I guess in that price range though, like Kincaid, Goddard. I think you mentioned it with Adrian Brown being out. Goddard to me is like the most obvious increased opportunity guy. He's not that much projected higher ownership than Higbee, so I'd probably go there. But it's not a zero play certainly.
Yeah, and there are multiple comments in the chat about people hesitant to play Laporta, and guys, that's the whole thesis of this play. Like, he's going to be low owned. No one wants to play him. And yes, we're not saying he's going to play all the snaps, but if he's going to play, he's likely going to suit up. Again, full practice on Friday is crazy considering what his injury looked like on Sunday. Full practice, they expect him to have his usual role from what we're hearing. So yes, I understand it is very scary to play a guy coming off a knee injury, but the field is playing that as well, Jack. I mean, we could see him at 5%, if not less.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull up some encouragement here for folks. I just quickly looking at fantasy points against tight ends. The Rams are the second worst in the entire league. And Laporta is a downfield explosive play. Like, he's not like a dude that has to catch 5 passes for 50 yards. The dude could, like you said it, he'd be optimal with like 2 receptions. Just he catches 60-yard touchdowns. So
right.
Again, you don't have to go crazy with it. We're not saying lock him. We're just saying he's you could play him 15% of your lineups and you would be way over the field. Small field, use him once and you're going to be over. So you don't have to go crazy with it, but it's just optimal more than the field's going to use it, right?
Right, and it's not like this is Jake Ferguson or Kincaid, who, yes, are part of high-powered offenses. They literally draw up plays for Laporta, and they scheme him open. There's a reason he set the rookie record for touchdowns or tied it with Mike Ditka. Yeah, so I understand. But, again, we spend a lot of time on this, but we do like Laporta. Junior says, do you see ownership leverage in waiting to mega stack Tampa Bay and Philly? I think we both agree that there is ownership leverage to be had there, although while the quarterbacks are relatively unpopular, there still are some popular options like Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, just guys that probably should be more owned for the opportunity. That's kind of the big one there. Let's do hit Brock Wright. FanDuel is 4 games. Yep. DraftKings is 3. More Laporta questions. What else we got? Gainwell. He does get run. I feel like the running backs you are not playing in that slot by using him are thin. Same with like Dowdle. Like, yes, they get run on a 2-game slate. I'd be interested, but there's just enough upside, like opportunity hogs, I guess is the right term, on the slate for running back that seems thin to me. Any disagreement there?
No, it's this. Yes, you save salary by playing Dowdle and Gainwell, and you hope that they score 10 points, but you're missing out on the opportunity not to have 20-plus points potentially from Kyron, Tony Pollard, Rashad White, Montgomery Gibbs, James Cook, Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift, Pittsburgh running backs. Like, it seems really tough to play those guys. Michael says it was interesting yesterday that the 2 back-to-back picks from Flacco took all the air out of the game where both quarterbacks had great first halves. Any of these games susceptible to a similar dead second half? Jack, I don't know if you have a crystal ball. I don't know. But, yeah, those are just things that happen in game stacks sometimes. It's not something you can really predict in advance.
Oh, but that was a good example of if Cleveland didn't sort of give up, like the quarterback first defense would have been easy optimal. Like if Flacco kept going and scored a couple more touchdowns, I agree with you. It did kind of shut the game down. I guess that's a good point for the 3-gamer, 4-gamer. Are you interested in the D versus quarterback? Are you just going to let it do what it wants? Are you going to try to block it?
I,
Any initial takes there?
I think 4-gamer you could probably block it. 3-gamer I'm letting it ride and just seeing what comes out as far as building 300 lineups and seeing what's popular, what's optimal, what's popping to the top of the lineups that are spit out. So yeah, I think you don't necessarily block it. I wouldn't necessarily target it either. I mean, but maybe Jared Goff versus Matt Stafford is the ultimate quarterback versus defense matchup there. But again, Jack, it's not something I'm targeting. I will allow it though.
I do love that you mentioned those two, and even the Tampa Bay Philly, 2 injured quarterbacks that throw a lot. Like that's also interesting. But like you said, I don't think you need to get crazy with that. Someone asking about Jameson and D Rob. I mean, I prefer Robinson. I just feel like he has a more secure role. They throw more. Like you said, what's the dude's name? Reynolds.
Yeah.
Reynolds is playing about as much. To your point about maybe trusting veterans more, it feels over like the ownership gap between Reynolds and Williams feels like too much for the probability of one of them being optimal. Whereas Marcus Robinson is kind of locked into 80+% snaps, 5+ targets, right?
Not to mention, right? Like at the beginning of the year and last year, all they could talk about was trying to get Jameson Williams up to speed, eliminate mistakes. Seemingly every week he was doing something, some sort of mental error. Yes, he's been fine. There's been no hiccups lately, but again, it wouldn't shock us to see Reynolds outsnap him and out target him today. So again, yeah. And so his question, JP, are lineups with Robinson and Williams chalky? Yes, we have him as the 2 most popular receivers on DraftKings, I think, right, Jack? If you could check their ownership for me.
Yeah, they are. I mean, salary's tight on the slate, so they are very chalky. And I don't know if this is a much a thing in NFL. In hockey, it definitely is the whole revenge narrative thing, right? But Josh Reynolds, quote unquote revenge game.
Yeah, true.
It wouldn't shock me if at some point in the week they were like, hey, we want to try to get him a touchdown against his old team or something like that. So again, another reason to take the dive there at much lower ownership.
Yeah, Sean says if Watson starts and plays a full load, which of the Green Bay wide receivers takes the biggest hit? Melton, Wicks. It's definitely Melton. He's by far the lowest in the pecking order there. Wicks has proven himself. Dobbs is also kind of banged up. I think we see a Dobbs, Watson, Wicks rotation. Reed's probably the safest guy. But Jack, the way they play, all these guys are going to play enough that any one could outproduce their ownership and their salary. It's just tough figuring out which one that will be.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say if you do that is just be around a lock. Obviously, like I think do sites have Watson projected out right now? I want to look again.
I think most industry sites have Watson projected in. So
okay, so he will get some ownership. So yeah, just be around. I think like Showdown is a good way to leverage this, right? If you're willing to just be around a lock, and like if Watson is ruled out, guys like again Bo Melton, Malik Heath type players are going to be zero owned at extremely cheap prices. But for the multi-game slate, like you said, it's just there's not a ton there to get crazy with.
Cool. All right, so this is what we're gonna do here. It's 12:35. We'll be here for 5, maybe 10 more minutes. There are 3 short slate strategies we discuss all the time: overstacking, 4, 5, 6 guys, 7 guys from one game, playing low owned plays, leaving salary. Jack, I don't know if low owned plays. I don't know if salary is really a viable strategy on the 3-gamer and the 4-gamer based on who is playing and based on the pricing. Stacking, yes, still very much an option, but to me, playing low owned play is the best way to play it. Tell me if you disagree, and if so, why? If not, we can talk about some of our favorite low owned plays at every position.
No, I'm with you. I think there's enough good players on the slate that if one fails, it doesn't mean that a 4K salary remaining will win. And yeah, overstacking. Just to be clear, like I had a couple main slates in small field where I played like a 4-stack and it still won. So certainly, even though it's a 4-gamer and not a 2 or 3-gamer, you can 4-man stack teams, especially in the case of like the Rams or the Lions where where the ball's going. Yeah, I'm with you. Let's focus on low and plays to close it out.
All right, so these are plays that we consider under 20% projected ownership. Reminder: this is a 3-gamer for DraftKings, 4-gamer for FanDuel. Under 20%. For FanDuel, I will look at under 15% for this threshold. So quarterback, For FanDuel, we have Jordan Love and Baker Mayfield, Jack, as two low-owned quarterbacks, and we have Mason Rudolph on both sites, which is super gross. I think I prefer Mayfield with the Philly secondary injuries, but are you willing to play these guys? Are you going to play all the quarterbacks? Do you have a preference on a low-owned guy?
It's crazy as a Packer fan, but I'm kind of leaning towards not playing Love. And again,
Yeah.
it's just because I don't know where the ball's going. One thing I really look for when trying to spread out the quarterbacks is like, can I just anchor stack a receiver? With Baker Mayfield, I'm just going to play Mike Evans in every Baker Mayfield lineup, and I
Right.
hope that if Baker's optimal, it's because Mike Evans went off. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's Baker, and I think it's because it's a decent scoring environment, and we know the most likely path to upside for him. Um, Goff, I guess honorable mention, 13%. Laporta, and Ross St. Brown, very funnel target tree there
True.
at a decent price.
Very true. Sorry, I looked at under 10%, which is why I mentioned those guys. But yes, golf as well, obviously, at just 13%. Really quickly, the douche who is active in our Discord, which, by the way, if you're not in our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord, link in the description, is asking, what are we doing with the flex spot on FanDuel and the four-gamer running backs only, running backs limited pass catchers? Yes, it is a great running back slate, but there are a lot of great pass catchers as well, Jack. Are you limiting to just one position or just let the builder ride, whatever you decide with your mass multi-entry?
I think we have strong tight ends on the slate, and we see it win even with bad tight ends. So I would just let it ride and just focus more on the player ownership and field leverage than I would about what to do in the flex.
I totally agree. I totally agree with you there. All right, let's look at low-owned running back plays as we close out the show here. On DraftKings, we have Jalen Warren. Let me pull him up. We have him under 20%, which the great game script should favor Warren, I would think. On FanDuel, we have DeAndre Swift. And on both sites, we have David Montgomery and Rico Dowdle. Any thoughts on Jalen Warren, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery? We've already touched on Montgomery. We like him as a low-owned running back.
Yeah, I mean Swift is another obvious like injured quarterback. AJ Brown is out. Would it surprise anyone if the Eagles went super run heavy? Tampa's defense has not been amazing by any means. So if he got 25 touches and scored 40 points or 35 points, I don't think it would shock anyone. The price tag is why he's low owned. Why play him when you can play James Cook, Aaron Jones, etc. So that's another one that sticks out.
Exactly. All right, for the wide receiver position for low-owned plays, we have Cooper Kupp on DraftKings. People are going to play Puka instead. On FanDuel, we have Khalil Shakir, who is going to be extremely popular on DraftKings, but not as much on FanDuel because of his price. We talked about Mike Evans on FanDuel especially, but both sites, if you're playing the four-gamer somehow or something. And then on both sites, we have Jaden Reed. We have basically all the Green Bay receivers. We have Brandon Cooks, George Pickens, Josh Reynolds, we've mentioned, who we like as well. Stephon Diggs, hovering around 10%, which is kind of crazy with no Gabe Davis. And Deontay Johnson and Romeo Dobbs as part of that Green Bay core. Again, Jack, I think Evans is easily the best low-owned play here. Diggs stands out as well as 10%.
Yeah, Diggs is a great one. I think you mentioned it too about the discrepancy in ownership between DraftKings and FanDuel. I mean, we mentioned that on my FanDuel win where Belton and Munt were like chalky DraftKings plays low on FanDuel. Marcus Robinson, he's not going to be nearly as owned on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. And then what was the other one you mentioned? Shakir, right?
Yeah.
He should probably be similarly owned on both sites, but he's not. And then I think Cooks is an interesting one too, just sub 10% at least on FanDuel. Really high upside guy, very involved. The Packers don't have a lot of corner depth, so I think like you said that this is why we're hammering low in play today. There's a lot of guys that are very good that are sub 15%.
So many good ones. And again, this is why we're in a playoff slate, right? This isn't some random November 2-game slate where we have the fucking, I don't know, the who are some bad teams? We don't have Jets and Broncos or
Pittsburgh
like
Jets,
that.
Broncos, Broncos.
Yeah,
There you go.
we don't have
I
any
feel
of
like
those
Broncos,
teams.
Patriots, Jets were like half the primetime games this year.
Bro, get off my TV. I could not. I'm so glad there are good teams on the TV now. All right, tight end. Higbee on FanDuel, Cade Otton on FanDuel. Both sites. We have Kincaid, the Green Bay tight ends, who there's some uncertainty in playing time there. Freiermuth, and of course Sam Laporta, which we'll touch on once again as our favorite tight end play as a low-owned option.
I guess we haven't gone with too many psycho plays. So I'll make one. Luke Musgrave is a Sam Laporta type guy in that he's a field stretcher and has made some huge plays. I really wouldn't get crazy with it, like probably a large field only thing. But if he plays, 3 3/4 snaps and gets a couple deep looks, he could easily score 15 points at basically zero ownership. So again, large field only, not going crazy with it, but if you're looking for a punt that's not chalky, I think that's not the worst one.
Love that too. All right, let's get to these final questions, and then we'll hop out of here. Let's see here. Junior says, are you expecting Trey Palmer to be the Tampa Bay wide receiver 3? Yes. 25 plus routes last week for Trey Palmer is the only underperforming wide receiver on the 4-game slate. So if you're looking for a really low-owned dart throw, Trey Palmer is your guy there. And again, with the secondary banged up for Philly, maybe he's your cheap piece to add to that game stack. Is Detroit going to stop Kyren? A lot of people asking about Kyren Williams, Detroit. Kyren Jack is not that popular, all things considered. It's his price tag, right? He's $9K on FanDuel. He is what, $7,300 on DraftKings. As a result, he's not this outrageously popular guy. So I think he's a good guy to try to match or get overweight if you can at his with his workload.
Yeah, especially FanDuel, like 9K price tag is gonna keep him low. I am a long convert now that the opportunity trumps all. Like it doesn't matter if Detroit is good against the run. Like the dude's gonna get 20 plus opportunities. He's not sharing with anyone. He's in an explosive offense. Yeah, I think it's a great pay up play that's way too low. He's the kind of guy that on a 2-game slate he might have been like 60% owned, but just because of all the other names, he's getting priced out.
For sure. JP says, is Deontay Hardy just a punt returner? Yes. They used him on offense earlier in the season and realized he is not worth giving the ball to. So, yeah, he'll probably get a couple more snaps with Gabe Davis out, but not something that we're looking to play. Trent Sherfield is the biggest beneficiary there. All right, let's close out the show. 2-gamer today, 3-gamer today and tomorrow, 4-gamer today and tomorrow. Biggest differences in strategy, Jack, between 2-gamer, 3-gamer, 4-gamer in your eyes. You're the expert here, so close out the show with that information.
I guess, I think start with the 3-gamer mentality of like, the 3 things you mentioned: salary, low-owned plays, overstacking. And then for the 4-gamer, think more low-owned plays and more conventional stacking like a main slate. For the 2-gamer, think more leave salary, overstacking are more preferable. So I guess that's kind of the best like 15-second summary.
No, I think that's great. And final question from Aaron: are you keeping all the quarterbacks in the player pool on the 3-game slate?
Which the 3rd game tomorrow is the Buffalo.
Are you playing Rudolph?
I probably won't play. No, I'm not playing Rudolph. I'm just not. I'm not doing it. No. Are you?
No, God, no. No.
That's really what that question was asking.
Yeah, no.
Politically correct way to put, maybe he's a Mason Rudolph polite thing. Maybe he knows his family or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Final comment from Sam Laporta is not buying into Laporta's health. They called up Fisker, which seems like a red flag. Typically, yes, but their other tight end, James Mitchell, is also out. They had to call up a tight end. They're not going to roll with just Laporta and Brock Wright. They've run with 3. That's why they called him up. So, again, guys, I know we want to – there are a lot of reasons not to play Laporta, but that is the reason he is 5% owned on DraftKings and probably less on FanDuel. So, again, just play Sam Laporta in high-risk contests.
And the other good thing is like there's a lot of good options in that game that are as expensive or cheaper. Like if you're willing to late swap, like I believe you could make competitive lineups late swapping, even if you have him in, and
Sure.
You swap to the Rams tight end and then play whatever receivers you want, right? So yeah, I think you're not like really screwing yourself too much as long as you're willing to check it and adapt.
Totally agree. All right, guys, that'll do for this video. We appreciate you watching on this Sunday. The Daily Plug is up at OccupyFantasy.com. Covers today's 3 and 4 gamer with lineup construction tips, strategies, rankings. Our Occupy model is up and running. Ranking every player, FanDuel and DraftKings. The lineup builder that Jack created is up. Has ownership for literally every slate. So if you're playing even just one lineup, having ownership for the random 2-gamer, 3-gamer, 4-gamer, whatever it is, we have ownership for all of it. So build up to 300 lineups. This lineup that I built on screen, this 15K win from last night, I used the lineup builder. I put in all of the rules, spit out 300 lineups, saw what was at the top, picked out the ones that matched the most. So again, even if you're building just a couple lineups, you can use the lineup builder, OccupyFantasy.com/lineup builder. Give us a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the channel. We'll go live, or maybe not go live. We'll upload the Showdown video for tomorrow. So subscribing is the best way to get notified when we go live, as well as any future playoff videos, which we will be sure to do. Follow Jack on Twitter at DFS_magic_. Follow me at Brian Jester FF. All of us at Occupy Fantasy. Thank you for listening, and good luck and enjoy a wild card weekend.